Hey whiskey lovers, Luke here. Today we're going to be tasting some more whiskeys, but I'm going to change the pace a little bit. I'm actually going to go with some bourbons, and I've got here an Old Weller Antique. This is a Kentucky Straight bourbon whiskey, and I've also got Elijah Craig. It's a 12-year-old Kentucky Straight bourbon whiskey once again. And then to top it off, I've actually got a rye whiskey here, the Sazerac Rye. This one's a little harder to come by, but I thought I'd throw it in just to see if I can pick up any differences. So I don't taste a whole lot of bourbon whiskey. These are probably 3 of 5 bottles that I've ever had. But I thought that it might be interesting to see if I could pick up on some notes here. So let's start with the Old Weller. Let's see where we go. So you know what? Let me show you the bottle here before I pour it out. This is I think if you go and do some searching on the internet, this will probably come up. Come on, focus for me. This is a pretty cheap whiskey, but it has some depth to it, so I think a lot of people find it to be kind of their go-to bourbon. So let's see what she looks like. Okay, now I've found bourbons, well, these are all relatively cheap, so it's possible they do a lot of caramel coloring to these, but this is like an amber +3, something like that. Quite a bit of red color in there. Hard to tell on the camera, but I can tell here. You'll have to trust me. Let's see what the nose is like. There's a good bit of spice here. Now bourbons, if you've never tasted a bourbon but you've tasted a single malt, I guess I would say a single malt is kind of a sweet, clean flavor, where a bourbon is like a heavy spice, a woody whiskey. This has got some some alcohol on the nose. It burns a little bit. Maybe a little banana, like a real ripe banana. Did I say vanilla? That's in there. I've seen some tasting notes that say there's like some floral notes. I don't get much of that. It's fresh. It smells fresh, kind of young, like a younger whiskey. But that could just be the alcohol. Let me have a taste, and I'll add some water and see if it changes. It's got a lot, whew, a lot of fire there. Spicy. I'm gonna just add some water. So this is 107 proof. Pretty hot. Give it a little shake there. That's a little better. A little bit more sweetness coming off now. Still pretty bright. Some spiciness. Not a whole lot of like citrusiness here. Maybe just a little bit, but let's have a taste. Still, the primary thing here is spiciness, with a little bit of vanilla to support it, a little bit of sweetness. If you like the spiciness of a bourbon, this is a pretty interesting one. Let's move on and see what the Elijah Craig is like. Let me show you the bottle. So 12 years old. Get the camera to kick in here. This is, I believe, 47%. There it is. Elijah Craig, some nice artwork, some flavor text on the back. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this bottle I like the most of all the bottles I've poured whiskey from. It's got a nice lip on the top that doesn't dribble as much as other whiskey bottles. Wow, this is a very red whiskey. Once again, it's kind of like an amber +3, but very red. A lot of redness in there. Yeah. Okay, nose. A lot of sourness. You know, there's a little bit of a... It smells like a fresh single malt, just a teensy bit of that. But it's still like the bourbon spiciness is coming through. The sourness is distinct in this, actually. Not really a sour fruit, but more just like citric acid. I'd say it's more of a lemon as opposed to like a lime or an orange. I think the nose here is more balanced than the Old Weller. The Old Weller has got an overpowering spice, whereas this is kind of spicy, citrusy, sweet, vanilla. You can kind of pay attention to each specific note and get a little bit more out of it. Let's have a taste. So in the mouth, this is more balanced for sure. I'm trying to pick up like the specific thing that's most powerful in the flavor here. If I had to compare it to the Old Weller, I'd say it's more buttery, a little more creamy. The sweetness is there. Let's have a smell of the Old Weller and compare. Now, the biggest difference is the sourness of this Elijah Craig. It's interesting, the Elijah Craig is a 12-year-old, whereas the Old Weller is, well, it not even stated, so I'm assuming it's probably a bit of a younger whiskey. But the Elijah Craig has a nose on it that smells younger to me. But then in the mouth, the Elijah Craig is a bit more interesting, or at least a little less in your face, something you can kind of sip on and enjoy, just kind of relax a bit. Spicy, much like the Old Weller, but just not overpowering. Let's see what this Sazerac Rye is like. Show you the bottle. The Sazerac Rye here, I think this is a little bit harder to come by. I don't know if I mentioned that. I had to actually special order this at my local wine shop. Let's see if we get a focus here. Perhaps not. Well, fair enough. There's not a whole lot going on in this bottle. Perfect whiskey, perfect choice to make the Sazerac cocktail, America's first cocktail. Very well. 45% alcohol. I really like this bottle. I like this long neck. Although it doesn't pour as well as the Elijah Craig, it's just kind of an interesting looking bottle. Very simple design, no stickers, anything like that. Just kind of Sazerac Rye right on there. Okay. So this is got the redness like the other two, but this is a little bit lower on the amber scale. It's kind of like amber +2. I'm guessing all of these have been colored, so probably doesn't mean anything. On the nose, this is It's spicy like the other two, but it's a little cleaner in the spice. I get a pretty distinct cinnamon note. There's some other spices in there, but I can't quite put my finger on them. It's drier than the other two. There's not a whole lot of sweetness here. It's, which I would guess is probably caused by the fact that it's a rye whiskey. Just in my experience with bread, if you were to compare like a white bread to a rye, or even a wheat bread to like a brown wheat bread to a rye bread, the dryness of a rye bread is sort of the sense that I'm getting here. When this 45% alcohol is actually easier on the nose. Not a whole lot of punch in the face. Let's have a taste. Spicy once again. There's a little bit of like a red fruit in there of some kind. Kind of a deep, heavy sweetness, but very subdued. I'm going to add a little water, see if I can get anything else out of it. Let me compare side by side with the other two to see if there's any kind of glaring differences. These are actually, you know, I said the Elijah Craig is pretty sour, but the Sazerac Rye has a similar sourness. In comparison, the Elijah Craig is almost smooth and sweet. And the Old Weller, good bit more vanilla, I'd say. Have another taste here. There's almost a mintiness in there. Not very strong. I think the dryness of this whiskey kind of lends it to a little bit more depth. There's not so much overpowering sweetness and vanilla. There's the opportunity for some more flavors in there. Very interesting. Right, so if I had to put them in order, which I'll do right now, all three of these are pretty interesting, actually. I think they're all really good. But then again, I like all the whiskey that I've tasted. So, but number one, Sazerac Rye, very interesting. If you can get your hands on it, definitely have a taste of that. Then Elijah Craig, pretty good. I think if I had to choose a whiskey to just kind of sit and relax and have a taste of some bourbon, Elijah Craig, that's the one to go with. And then if I'm in a kind of a frisky mood, Old Weller. Interesting whiskey. Right, so I hope that's been helpful. Bourbon whiskeys. Probably next time I'll be back to single malts, but nice change just for once in a while. Thank you.